is physical wealth.
Hello, hello, hello. Today is December 18th, and tomorrow is one of my son's birthday. All right. But anyway, so today I'm going to do a special talking about some things that I think are very important to talk about because there's some questions that were asked, but I didn't answer them online. So I want to go ahead and give that information, especially because I can see that people have donated. Teddy put that ticker tape up there. People have donated and asked. They're showing financial interest in seeing this information in a manner in which will financially benefit them, not just edify their minds intellectually. So I'm going to go ahead and give some information. Okay, see, that's a give and take. It's a give and take. I don't know what you're interested in. You're interested in knowing some information that's going to get you financially, a little bit financially well off, then, show some financial interest in knowing these things. And I got you. I'm going to hook you up. If you're just interested in being entertained, I got that too. But when you show financial interest, then I got to do that. Okay, hello, Facebook user. Stay tuned. Okay, so this is a little special for all those people who asked about how do I go to school? How do I afford to go to school? Now, it's very detail oriented, but for the most part, I'm going to say it like this. Military spouses, they have this problem where we go everywhere our military spouses go. And doing that means that we can't establish a career the way that the military person is establishing a career because they're stable in their career. So what'd you say, Eddie? I'm not really sure why that's happening. Okay. So also Merry Christmas. Yes, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. So because the military spouse is able to build a career, it kind of leaves the military spouse in a position where it's like, man, you building your career and you'll have something to fall back on when we retire. We're no longer, active duty military, but the spouse is kind of left out because they're jumping from location to location. And that means that they have to find employment wherever they can. And employment, even though there's perks that the military offers to try to help you have selective in the selection process for the job, it still doesn't help because there's so many loopholes and other ways around. So the best advice that I can give is to continue to further your education and allow your education to be that substance that you use as something that can help you retire, like your military spouse is doing, using the military career to build a foundation for being able to retire. Education is one of those things where people say, well, if you have the the training, the discipline to be loyal to a plan, a goal, an ambition, then you have what it takes for a organizational company to identify that as traits that's valuable for them to invest in to hire you. So the question is how to do that. So in 1952, it was this woman named Grace Harper. She was a mathematician and a Commodore in the U.S. Navy. She wrote a paper describing how to program a computer writing symbolic notation instead of detailed machine language that had been previously done. So basically what she did was, while the military paid for her education completely, what she did was she built upon what was already there because computers were already out for at least 10 or more years before she ever built upon that. So, computers had already been advancing the world, and it had been a big part of IBM, which was a major company at the time and extremely lucrative. And it was also deeply rooted in the military, but the military was using computers already. So it was like, well, how do I benefit from that? That the military understood that when they educate their people, then they're enabling them to build the army, build the military, build, you know, a foundation. This camera thing really gets to me. So I bumble my words because I'm just not, the camera type. So anyway, bear with me. So with that being said, the computers became a major part of organizations and the way business function. So another method in the military helping to improve was to allow more people to go to school, but people weren't able to pay for school. So, and a lot of people who wanted to join the military simply to be able to afford to go to school, they were like, well, I can't join the military because I don't qualify. You have to pass an ASVAB test. Some people, they don't do tests at all. I'm one of those people. I don't do tests at all. It's by the grace of God, I promise you, that I'm ever able to do anything that I do, especially this camera thing, because it really messes with my head. But anyway, this is an interactive show. So if you got questions, you can ask. But the military for the spouses developed this program called MyCAA. Some people didn't qualify for it. Some people did. So you have to keep checking back because they're always changing it. They're always changing it. So the MyCAA program helped me to pay for some of my education. And then there was my husband's GI Bill. He used that to help me to get the training in Security Plus with CompTIA training so that I could pass that test. And I did exceptionally well. And it was, again, by the grace of God, because I promise you, it's like you get this money and now you got this financial support and you're like, man, I don't want to blow it. So now it's even more pressure. It's like, man, I don't want to blow it. This is my opportunity. This is my big chance. Let me do what I got to do. And then you fold under the pressure. And then it's like, man, I knew the information, but I could not convey the information in order to pass the assessment. So the best part about this next part that I'm saying, the military Chapter 35 funds, is that regardless of how you do in your education, they're going to pay for your education. So let's say you got a failing grade and you're using the military Chapter 35 funds to go to school. They're still going to pay for your schooling. They have a time limit and an amount of money. It's like when you get a car, they say, well, you're either going to run up the mileage or you're going to run up the time that you have to use this much. So the amount of money that you have or the time in which you have to use it, one of the two are going to run out. So let's say you have 18 months to go to school and earn a degree. And it's based on how much money they give you, and they give you X amount of dollars, but those dollars values often change. So you got to stay up on it. But that's how you are able to have the financial support. I'm not saying it's going to pay for everything, but it's still a different type of support. You could get student loans, and I use student loans as well. But there's something different about this, because when you have the financial support of the military that's giving you these different programs like the MyCAA program, the Chapter 35 funds, there's another type of support that goes along with that, because they're going to make sure that you're not wasting your time and your effort. So let's say you're using the military Chapter 35 funds or the MyCAA funds, and you're going to an online school. At the time I was going to the University of Phoenix, And I told them, I said, well, look, I ran into some problems, and these problems seem like really odd, and I'm trying to get help and I can't find help. So the military stepped in. They said, look, this is one of our people. We're paying for this. So do better, or we're not going to fund you. And that's important, because when the military or the government is funding the school in order for the students to attend the school, because the school is nothing without students. They need students. And in order for them to get the government funding and the support from them, then they have to show themselves approved. So when the military is helping you pay for school, even though they're not paying for the whole thing, even though it may not do nothing more than afford you the opportunity to pay for your supplies like SD cards, computers, laptops, tablets, and other devices. And I highly recommend you get a dictaphone. Hey, Tony, how you doing? I know you know a lot about this because you ex-military. So you have the military financially supporting, even if it is just a little bit, but you also have their support in saying, look, you're not going to abuse this person and waste their funds. A lot of times people complain about, their biggest complaint about school is they feel like it's a waste of time and money and effort, especially when the grading systems seem to be shady, and the use of your funds and distributions of your funds seem to also be shady. And then you have scholarships, but the scholarships will only pay if you get an A or B, or you keep your GPA up really high. The military Chapter 35 funds will pay you regardless of what your grade is. As long as you're in school, they're going to pay you according to how many days you're in school. You have up to 30 days. They pay in 30-day increments. So if you say, well, I'm going to take a break, okay, you take a break, but they're only going to pay you for when you're in school. Now, I found that their financial support doesn't really cover the full cost of my tuition and books. And then that's a whole nother story in and of itself, because a lot of times you go to a school and historically it's understood that depending on the school you go to, you might not have real good books. You may not have a real good instructor. You may have to outsource information, is what I'm telling you. So you still have a cost that you have to pay if you want to play and win. So basically, the books that I had for school, I'm just going to use myself as an example. The books I had for school were inadequate for making the grades that I was getting. And a lot of times, for example, in my dissertation process, the chair and committees were always asking me, well, how did you know this? How did you find out this information? Well, if it wasn't for the funds that the military was supporting to include my student loans, I wouldn't have been able to purchase the proper equipment and the proper books in order to gain that kind of information. So it's still the matter of the fact that you have to outsource and use your funds wisely. It's only a stipend. Yes, it's only a stipend. It's not going to say, okay, well, we're going to pay all this money for you to go, and then you're going to use that and not have to have student loans or student debt or whatever. That's something totally different. But this right here that I'm talking about aided me in having the ability to write something, just like Dr. Grace Hopper, to write something that helped to change the world. And this is something that a lot of people don't even know about. I was talking to somebody on the base, and it's his job to know it. He works for the VA, and and VA education and stuff. And he didn't even know. He was like, man, I didn't know that you can use your funds to go and seek your PhD, or it's for any education. You can use it to get your associate's degree, your bachelor's degree, whatever degree. It's about if you qualify, if you meet the standards in order to qualify to receive the funds. But you also have to understand that there's a time limit. There's a time limit in which you have this certain amount of money. If you use that certain amount of money before the time runs out, Okay, if you don't use all the money before the time run out, that's waste. You left money on the table. So rewind this special episode and find out more. I wish it was some people here already that was asking questions. If this information applies to you, but if it doesn't, share with somebody else. And like I said, remember, sometimes people don't know what these funds are. A lot of times people they say things like, oh, people only marry military people because they want benefits and all this and that. These benefits that I'm talking about, you like the military chapter 35 funds, that's my husband is retired disabled. So that's why I qualify for that. It's to help to ensure us that despite the fact that we were depending on his income to support us and his career, it's like, look, we know y'all might have hit a hiccup with that. Let's kick you some funds so you can pursue other avenues. You have to be well diversified in order to make sure that you make it. You can't put all your eggs in one basket and say, hey, we're going to make it just off of this alone. No, you have to diversify. And that diversity comes from keeping the military spouses invested in the relationship so that once the veteran, once the military active duty person retires, they still have a life outside of the military, because the military does support you staying with your mate, as opposed to saying, I heard this, I was pregnant and all the women around me were losing their babies, and it was just crazy. And it was extremely emotional, because it's like, I'm pregnant and people are losing their babies that's military affiliated. So everything was like, man, you need to leave. You need to leave. And then you had the whole, well, you're always alone because they're deployed. And it's like, man, I could be alone and be by myself and not be married, you know? And then you have, hey, sis, thank you for joining. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. So you have all of the odds against you to say, leave your military spouse. That messes with their mind. And then it's like, oh, I'm threatening a miscarriage. And I'm at the hospital, the VA hospital, saying, hey, look, call my husband back home. I need help with the kids we have so that I can keep the one I'm carrying, because I can't do both. And the doctor told me, and he was an older man, and his blonde hair started to turn white, and it just seemed like he was just like tired of being, PC about stuff. He's like, he told me, he said, well, people lose babies all the time. Your husband is in the military, and from what I heard, he is an essential worker. We can't call him off. So I'm like, did y'all check who my husband was before I came into the appointment, so that if I have some problems, you can talk me out of asking him to come home or validating that he needs to come home and help me? So it's crazy, but it really got me to thinking. That's what I call one of these adroit discoveries, stuff that you come to discover without actually being told, but it was a hidden understanding that a lot of people aren't forthcoming to tell you. Look for the book. Look for the book. That's all I'm going to say. But there's all these reasons why the military spouses end up leaving their mate, as opposed to sticking by their side and having a life with them when they're outside of the military, because, oh, well, we already been through hell and high water. There's no sense in us breaking up now. But the divorce rate in the military is extremely higher than any other occupation, so it's not to say hang in there because you can get these funds in order to build you a career even though you're traveling with your mate. It's not to say that. It's to say that there are some ways that you could continue to fight for your relationship in the military, and you can build a career for yourself even though the odds are against you. And those odds, though they were all against me, I was still able to use my education to write something phenomenal. And it wasn't just the finances. It was the finances. It was the support that they had when in advocating for me to make sure that I was able to get what I was paying for. It was also a whole lot of prayer, fasting, praise and worship. And I know a lot of people are like, well, we don't want to do all that. I'm just letting you know what I did and how I became successful. And a lot of people, especially scientists, want to find a workaround so they don't have to rely on things like faith. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of the advancements in the world are based on, the phenomenon of having this spiritual experience or seeking a spiritual understanding. Even in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the very top of it is transcendence, which is a whole man type of nourishment, where you're meeting your financial, mental, emotional, and physical needs, and then you transcend to this other type of fulfillment, which is your because you start to realize, I'm not going to live forever. At some point in time, I'm not going to be here, and the world will still go on. So you have to deal with that. And by dealing with that, you start to realize that there's a spirituality that you got to nourish as well. So there's a spiritual level of understanding that you have to have. So it's like you take all of that together and you build your understanding. And it's difficult to do that when there's all this noise and distractions, especially these things called life. Now, I look at it like this, and this is why Adroit Living, I'm a psychologist because that's just what's in my DNA. That's what's in my makeup. But I went to school in order to hone that in order to sharpen that, in order to build what's innate in me. So it just flowed better. It wasn't difficult for me. I didn't do it for a grade. I did it for some other purpose. But God bless that the grade came along with it, that I'm a scholar, meaning I excel really high in these things. But I promise you, it's not me. I've been saying that since people have been asking me in high school, and people get really mad. Well, elementary actually. But people say, well, how did you do it? How did you do it? And I tell them, but they don't believe me. So there it is. But Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, it shows right at the top of the pyramid, transcendence, which it identifies a spirituality. So there that is. I'm not lying. So, I mean, it's all able to be discovered and found if you're looking. But anyway, this is how I think of it. Adroit is spelled ADROIT. And the acronym that I use is a doctor of it. A doctor, ADR. O is the of, and it with the IT together. And it's like a doctor of it. Of what? Living. Which is the next word. Adroit living. A doctor of living. Now, we can all wait and try to fund all our money into a school in order to get that degree, in order for them to give us or award us acknowledgments and diplomas and titles. But really, you functioning in who you are and your intellectual ability, regardless of where you're doing it at. And then the whole thing about, paying for school, it's like I'm paying all this money to go to a school, but I'm performing the same way as I would if I was at Harvard or Penn State or, some sort of school where I'm going to pay a lot more money, but I'm doing it in this, this other school. For example, I waited. I was like, okay, I have the grades. I have the, as far as the grades, meaning your scholar title. And I could use that to go to Harvard and pay a lot of money. Or I can use that and continue to use it in a public school forum, like an online school. And I elected to do it online because in a regular public school, because it was important that you understand that it doesn't matter if you go to Harvard. It's everybody in Harvard doesn't necessarily change the world. They just attend Harvard. There are a whole lot of everyday people like me, people that can't be in front of the camera without stumbling over words or mispronouncing words and have these quirky things about them and maybe even annoying. I don't know. But I've heard some people at my school say, oh, she's arrogant. I was like, wow. I was appreciative that the doctor told me in our conversation. He was like, well, I heard you're arrogant. And I'm like, no, I don't know. What did I do? I didn't say no. That wasn't the first thing I said. I was like, wow, really? But I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, no, what did I do? But anyway, he was like, I said, well, I don't know how that came about. When one of the guys said that he felt like I was challenging him, I said, well, I'm backing up. I'm not going to even, deal with him no more. But I continued to work with him because that's who I had to work with. But it was a matter of the fact that if I was arrogant, I would have had a couple of other words to say. I'm just saying, and I let him know. I'm like, look, it's through the grace and mercy of God that God bridles my tongue, because the things that I could say, I'm not saying, but I want you to understand that I understand what you're saying to me, but I don't have anything that's in alignment with that, because this is an all online school. So every communication that we have is recorded. Plus, I'm a scholar, so I record everything. I don't care what it is. There's this thing called a dictaphone. Look it up. Use it, buy it, invest in it. And the money that you get, you say, oh, well, I'm just going to use it this is for school purposes, and it's necessary. It is absolutely necessary. They say that about me and I don't have it. Hey, and I get it. A lot of the people that I know and love and who have helped to educate me and edify me and grow my intellectual ability so that I can display that academically in a traditional form, they didn't have degrees. These people didn't have degrees, and these were my mentors. These were people who fed me, who nourished me, who helped me to grow and exercise wisdom, because they helped me build the wisdom. So it's great that the military actually helps with that, but it's because they understand that the American forces are stronger when we are unified, despite the normatives that divide us, like labels. Well, I don't know. Sometimes I'm going to say it like this, Tony, from what I experienced, because like I said, I'm a psychologist because it's in me. And sometimes when we do a whole lot of praying, we can see things, we can pick up on things that other people may not be able to denote in the tones and the actions and the ways of other people. And I think, he was hurting, and he was trying to get along with a particular clique that didn't fancy me as much as perhaps they might if they realized that the work that I did and was coveted was actually, something that could build that platform as opposed to tear it down. So a lot of the people that were in that school got displaced. However, the system, and I didn't say all of them, notice, the system still holds true to that same practice. So it's important that the military helps, because the military don't just give you money, they are helping to advocate for you. That's why it's important. So I strongly suggest that you understand that you're not just looking for money, you're looking for the advocacy. And that advocacy is going to help you to improve who you are. And if it's in you to help improve the world, that's exactly what's going to happen regardless. Do you think Dr. Grace Hopper thought about, oh, I'm going to change the world? No, she didn't. Did I think, oh, I'm going to change the world? As a matter of fact, I was told, oh, you can't change the world with a dissertation. You make it smaller, but did not tell me how to do that. Well, and then there was the first SME that was turned into a chair. She was like, always giving me books or information that was discouraging and saying things like, oh, the reason why some people who seek a PhD never obtain the PhD. Like, instead of you feeding into me and building me, you're tearing me down. And those the military support, financial, and advocacy helped to improve the experience and allowed for me to write something so phenomenal. It is helping to change the world. But it was already because I was a person in motion towards those things already. And I'm praying, I'm fasting, I'm consecrated, I'm studying. And I'm not just studying the books that they give me, just like some people go to church and don't just study the books they give you. So it's a holistic effort. And all of that put together, I was blessed to be able to write a dissertation proposal that's globally trending, and emerging studies are helping to improve the world of human resource management practices. So stay encouraged, no matter what people say, no matter how much they covered it. Remember, ill-gotten goods don't last because they're not sustainable. You can't sustain it. It's unsustainable, meaning you can't hold on to it. So even though they coveted what they coveted, there's this whole other thing, and I'm going to tell you about that. But this is just a special. I had to put that out there because I have to be vocal about giving thanks where and honor where it's due. And I really want you to understand that there's hope out there for you too. I understand your pain and all the things that you are going through when you're trying to be a military spouse and stay in the relationship and build that person and be their first responder. And then you got these whole all this other background stuff going on. Stay encouraged. Keep moving forward. Keep praying. It's going to work out. And as a scientist, I have not found anything in my studies that's in alignment with anything that can replace your spiritual journey, aiding your progress and development to success. I understand that tongue is a double-edged sword, but my prayer would have been, don't let me cut them too badly. I need a little more Jesus to keep it right up. Because, man, hey, we all need a little more Jesus, because I ain't gonna say I'm perfect, because I say some things I shouldn't say, and it's unknowingly. I don't do it, knowing. It just happens. It's some Freudian slips that I really like, because when that Freudian slip, well, this is a retaliation. Now I'm thinking. Yeah, I see you. So I had to go back and research. And I'm like, all that stuff that I missed because I'm focused and goal oriented. We're gonna circle back to it. That's what I told one of the doctors in one of those videos. People cover because of fear. People also cover because they're greedy. People also cover because they don't want but a particular person or a particular culture of people to advance these things in these ways. And they want, for example, that SME turned into the chair. She didn't want me to dictate research, let alone interpret it, because she didn't want the advancement to come from somebody like me. I just wish I could meet her outside. That's all I'm saying. Because, yeah, I might smile all the time and whatever, and I might try to be as nice as I could possibly be, but don't push me and you in my presence. It might not work out so well. I still do it smiling, though. But I promise you, my sons don't call it the Holy Ghost for no reason. All right? Because God didn't call people to be unable to handle themselves. He does advise that you be wise, and I exercise wisdom, because I've never, and I thank God, I have never been in a situation where I've assaulted someone who did not deserve it. What do I mean? I can defend myself. I know the law. What'd you say, Jackie? Yeah. And it's like this. When we look at it as somebody being over us or excelling beyond us, You should know that we're a team, and it was our team effort. Just like I said with the military, it's the team. And when we stop understanding that it's the team effort, you become the snake that's eating yourself, and you don't even know it. You think you hurting the person of your aggression, but you're not. You're eating yourself. And in this digital age, the episode I'm about to do, this is the special, but the episode I'm about to do, I'm going to show you right after this. I'm going to end this and I'm going to go right into that. But you're eating yourself. You're hurting yourself. You can believe what you want, but it is what it is. All right. Now, everybody stay tuned. I got to go into the next, into the real episode. This was the special. I had to put this out here for my partners and the people that's helping on the team, so that they have something to share. So I got to get off of here and go into the other episode. Teddy, take us out.
Mental health is